Hi, my name is Dr. Ray Pastor, and today I'm going to talk about replacing ADDIE and whether you can replace ADDIE. So first, what is ADDIE? What is this thing that we keep saying in our field? ADDIE is just an acronym for analysis. You can see my picture on the screen here. In instructional design, we start with an analysis. We do a design, we develop, we implement, we evaluate. What that means is when we first come up with a problem that we know there's a training, we have some kind of training problem, we do an analysis. This analysis tells us who are the learners, what kind of environment am I developing in, and I do a gap analysis to figure out what can I do, what's needed, what's the current state, the desired state, and what's the solution. Once I have a solution, I design. I design the training. Once I've designed the training, I develop it. I create it. Once I've done that, I put it out there. I give it to the company, give it to my client. I implement it. Once it's implemented, then I evaluate it. I figure out, did this training work? What was the return on investment? That's the ADDIE process. So the big question is, can we replace this process? Unfortunately, there's a lot of confusion out there in the field. So the first thing I'm going to say is, no, you cannot replace ADDIE. The second thing I'm going to say is, no, you cannot replace ADDIE. There isn't one defined way to do ADDIE. I worked for multiple companies on multiple different projects. Every single time we did ADDIE slightly different. ADDIE was changed to fit the project. Whatever the project demands were, that's how we did ADDIE. If there was an instance where we could do ADDIE rapidly, like a rapid e-learning, then that's what we did. But that doesn't work in every case. You can't just always do rapid e-learning. There were times we didn't have to do an analysis because we had done an analysis previously on the other project with that client. So we could skip analysis. We had already done it previously though, so we technically didn't skip it. We just didn't need to do it for this project, or we could do a very modified one. Maybe, there were 10 modules that needed to be developed, but, we could push out module 1 and have it implemented while module 2 was still being developed. There's no right way to do it. It's the right way for the project. So when someone says they're replacing ADDIE, they're incorrect. What they're doing is they're using one of the thousands of different ways to do ADDIE that there are. And I have some of the popular ones here, like Agile. If I'm using the Agile process in the instructional design, with instructional design, you know what I'm doing? I'm just doing ADDIE another way. I'm still using ADDIE. I'm not replacing it. There's nowhere that it says this is what ADDIE has to be. ADDIE does not have to be linear. There's a lot of confusion. When you're first taught ADDIE, for some reason, people just see it as this linear process. But no, it doesn't have to be like that. We're taught it that way when we first begin because you have to learn all the steps and you have to learn the process. But when you start applying it, it doesn't have to be like that. So it's not that you're replacing ADDIE, it's just you're doing one of the many ways that is possible. There are thousands. So you cannot replace ADDIE. You're never replacing it. You're just doing one of the many ways to do ADDIE. There are all kinds of names out there for all these other processes, like I'm using XY. I'm using the XYZ process. No, you're using one of the many ways to do ADDIE is what you're really doing, and someone just coined a term to call that type of process something. All right, thank you.